Jurassic World Dominion was a good movie. Now I'm aware that's a bit of a hot take, and I'm also aware that this is contrary to the wave of mixed and critical reviews it's received. And whilst yes, some aspects of those criticisms are probably valid, I believe it's actually been a little bit hard done by personally. I mean, 30% on Rotten Tomatoes? Really guys, come on. You're telling me this movie is worse than whatever the last instalment of the Fast and Furious saga was? Give over. Anyway, before I got distracted, where was I? Oh yeah, so it's been a little bit hard done by. I think the main reason for that is that a lot of people actually completely misunderstood Jurassic World Dominion and what it was intended to be. So with that in mind, I'm going to split this into two easy to digest parts and really break it down for you. So fasten those seatbelts and hold on to those butts as I try to help you understand the misunderstood and explain what this movie actually was and why I loved it. So how exactly was Jurassic World Dominion misunderstood? And better yet, what is it you were supposed to understand about it in the first place? Well, just like paleontologists trying to piece together bones bit by bit, you've actually got to go back to the beginning to understand where it all started. Whilst they may refer to the source of those bones for clues and context, we too are heading to the source material for our understanding. That's right folks, we're talking about books. Oh god, here he goes, I hear you say. He's going to start talking about books when we're here with pitchforks to tell him he's wrong about his personal opinion-based video essay on this movie we all don't like for some reason. Well yeah, I am. Sort of. Because the Jurassic franchise, believe it or not, stems from the late great mind of one Michael Crichton. And yes, he was an author. Gold star for you. Two books that went on to inform and somewhat inspire, and inspire being the key word here since the two mediums aren't exactly like for like, a 6-film blockbuster franchise, plus extended media such as video games, additional books, and even an animated canonical TV series. Source material matters, and whilst the Jurassic franchise has used it in a somewhat unconventional manner, I still get a huge kick out of seeing Michael's ideas come to life in the franchise he inspired. Cautionary tales about man's attempts to play God, the lack of control or power we have over everything, chaos theory, disasters caused by man's advancement of science, and the dangers and ethical quandaries of genetic power are just as prevalent in Jurassic World Dominion as they were in the original Jurassic Park novel and movie. And as much as these films are about dinosaurs, the core element of them is everything I just listed off. It's the thematic through line that I think often gets forgotten in this blockbuster franchise, where most seemingly just focus on the running, the screaming, the killing, and the islands filled with dinosaurs. The franchise is more than that. It always has been, and Colin Trevorrow knew this. It's always been about man's scientific achievements pushing the envelope of what is ethical and moral. It's always been about man's desperation for control. The dinosaurs in regards to the story are somewhat irrelevant, even if they are the obviously fantastical element that puts bums on seats. Put simply, if you haven't recognised the actual messages behind these movies by now, then you simply haven't been paying attention. As a quick example, let's use the first Jurassic World to show this. I've seen many comments about the start of this new trilogy, mainly from general moviegoers, that is the following. It's just the same as the first movie. Why are they doing a theme park again? Well, let's stop you there for a sec. First off, the original theme park never happened, so technically it's actually a new plot in that it's a fully fledged and functional park now. Secondly, you're sort of right that they're doing it again, just not for the daft reasons you've mentioned, you donut. If you are really noticing the similarities, it's because it's a tale of that lack of understanding that we are never in control. The science may be more advanced, the technology more robust, and the security even more heavily armed, but none of that matters, because the point of the first Jurassic World is to show that we haven't learned our lessons. That to quote a younger Jeffrey Goldblum, life finds a way. It was a movie attacking hubris and showing that human beings are infallible, particularly when influenced by greed, ambition, and purpose. So there you have it. Dinosaurs are involved, but the theme is the core thing that links these movies beyond that and really adds weight to them. The reason that I love Dominion in particular is that at points it feels like it goes above and beyond this to become more of a homage to Crichton's works in general, rather than just the Jurassic novels that he bestowed upon us. Many of his novels follow the familiar theme of the wonderfully skeptical sci-fi related ethical conundrums of modern science and how it can all easily go so wrong. You can see this very clearly in Jurassic World Dominion's OG cast plot with the ecological disaster that is pushing man towards the final seconds of the doomsday clock. Does it feel weird that it's totally not dinosaur related? Sure. Does it feel out of place based on those themes we just mentioned? Absolutely not. In fact, if anything, this movie propels things beautifully and organically from Crichton's initial ideas towards today's cynicism for egotistical corporate technomoguls. It's precisely where it was bound to head next. Louis Dodgson's character development from shaving cream-wielding corporate espionage lackey in the source material in the original movie to full-blown Tim Long Kuckerberger Zozusk is a masterstroke in my opinion. A change somewhat from his development in the sequel novel The Lost World, but one that I can really get behind, especially with them going in a slightly different direction for that movie. This change and development was the sort of evolution to an overall plot from 30 years ago that as a fan of the franchise I really loved. A nigh-on perfect reinterpretation of Crichton's original outlook on the dangers of science and tech, portrayed with a modern context we all understand and can relate to. It felt like an organic step that he himself would have taken. So to recap, misunderstanding number 1 was failing to recognise where this movie's themes come from, and what has come before both on and off screen to get us to this point. You needed to understand that it's the very homage I mentioned before, a movie carrying on a legacy of themes that a certain great author and man would no doubt have continued to explore, well over a decade after his passing. But here comes the second part of the misunderstanding. So what else did you need to understand for this movie to hit differently for you? Well, you're going to really hate this one, but it's as simple as the bloody director telling us years ago what this movie was actually going to be. Yup, that's right, it was mentioned in black and white all the way back in 2018, and yet for some reason everyone has glazed over this very fact and got annoyed at this movie for not being whatever each individual was expecting before they sat down to stuff their face with popcorn and watch it. Whew, that was a bit bitchy that, I'm sorry. Not only was it misunderstood because everybody forgot the franchise's core elements with those scientific themes mentioned before, but also because Colin Trevorrow rather specifically said to the likes of Entertainment Weekly, amongst many other media outlets, the following. If I could contextualise each film, I would say Jurassic World was an action-adventure, Fallen Kingdom is a kind of horror suspense film, and Jurassic World 3 will be a science thriller, in the same way that Jurassic Park was. Science thriller. It's right there. Case closed. You might not like it, but that's what this was always supposed to be. If you went into it looking for something else, then that is exactly why you left feeling confused and unsatisfied. This movie did exactly what it was supposed to do and what the director originally envisioned it to be. The two plots are both scientific in nature, and yes, you've got smatterings of action and a little adventure, but at its core, it's a nerdy sci-fi thriller. This was never going to be man versus dinosaurs battle for the planet, or at least not in the way many seemingly had hoped. It's much more nuanced than that. So take off those bulky night vision goggles blurring your view of this movie, and instead stick on those thick-rimmed black Chaotician glasses, undo your top button, and go along for the crazy science-centric thrill ride. So there you have it, exactly how Jurassic World Dominion was misunderstood and how in fact it was pretty much almost a masterpiece in my book. Yes, I could have delved into its easy to pick out flaws. Sure, I could have focused more into the other elements that make this such an entertaining trip to the cinema. Your legacy characters returning, the introduction of feathered dinosaurs, nods and winks to the franchise and novels at large. I could have done all of that, but what's the point in covering obvious ground? Amongst those being the other reasons I personally love this movie, I also love this movie for staying true to its ideals and delivering a Jurassic movie that continues the story in a smart, plausible and organic way based on its original creator's intentions and its current custodian's desires. All being said, at the end of the day, I'm prepared to die on this island full of dinosaurs and internet hate comments and having this hot take, so here we are. If you didn't like Jurassic World Dominion, then that's fine. But why not have a step back, reassess and double check whether it's more likely you just had slightly different expectations of what this was actually going to be before heading into it, rather than just not liking it for not liking its sake, or because some fussy movie critic online said it was bad. If after that the answer is still the same, then fair enough. I hope you still enjoyed this fella's take on it anyway. Oh, and before I go, speaking of expectation, why not check out this video here? Seems we have ourselves a recurring theme. Anyway, until next time, see you in a bit.